I'm already into the 420, damn it!
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
What's the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefers?
Yeah, man.
You mean that cat's high?
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters with News Hawks, Kim Cooper and myself, L. Graham. It's April the 1st, 2019, and that's no joke. And we are coming to you live from the Legacy420.com news desk here at 420radio.com. Hello, Kim. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks today, Al. Doing pretty good. The sun is shining, the snow is melting in the north, life is good, and things are busy as ever in cannabis news.
Oh, are they ever? I should also mention we're also broadcasting live at Gonjanistas in Hamilton.
Yes, we are. 420 news desk, or the Legacy 420 news desk is now live, brought to you from Hamilton. Gonjanista's Cafe is there, and they offer some interesting services. Stop by and check them out in Hamilton.
That's right, King Street, I believe. King Street, right?
Yep.
Yep. All right, Kim. Well, where shall we get started today?
We're going to start off in good old Canada and talk about our major police force in this country, the RCMP.
That's right. Well, as you know, Kim, there's raids going on all over the country. Dispensaries are being raided. Anybody who's selling any illegal cannabis is being raided, unless you are a licensed producer.
Yeah. Licensed producers only are the ones that seem to have the handle on all of this. And the RCMP is happy to bust anybody who's outside that realm. But it seems when the LPs, or licensed producers, as they're known, LPs in this country, they have a different set of rules to play by, apparently. If they break the rules and break the law under the Canadian Cannabis Act, seems the RCMP looked the other way.
It seems that way because it says Health Canada spokesperson has said that Bonafide possessed, distributed, and sold a product it bought from an illegal source. But the RCMP has determined that a full investigation won't be necessary.
Yeah, it's not warranted. Stuff's under the review. We'll take a look at it later sometime, maybe. It's not high on the priority list.
Yeah, and this all came about because of an investigation that was going on by a third party, and it turns out that third party person who did all this investigation, handed in the information, wasn't even informed, that there wasn't going to be any charges or no investigation. Yeah.
So somebody, did the due diligence, looked at all of the evidence, and said, "Hey, you know what? These guys are buying illicit, quote unquote, cannabis as it's known today, if it's grown outside the LP system or from a legal patient. That's what they've labeled it as today. So it seems it's okay for the producers that are licensed by Health Canada to receive that product to pad their stock, but it's not okay for anybody else.
No, they got 200 kilograms of unlicensed material that they started selling. And, some of their executives and others, they lost their license for a little while. It was suspended there. Executives were turfed. But even now, those executives, or at least one of them, is turning around and suing them for a wrongful dismissal.
Yeah. Suing for wrongful dismissal, no investigation, no charges pending. Health Canada had to issue a recall notice on the products that this company sold. Manitoba suspended the sale of all Bonafide products after this breach came to light. But yet our top cops in this country don't feel the need to have an investigation over it, even though there's point blank proof that the law was broken.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's you're back to that who you know thing again.
Yeah. Different
Yeah.
laws are applied to different people at different strengths, if at all, depending on who you are and who you know. And that's the way it is in this country. And that's why we continue to protest today.
Yeah. Well, according to Toronto lawyer Matt Maher, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, he specializes in cannabis legislation. And he's disappointed that no criminal consequences are when it comes to this. And he says if something improper did happen, one would hope that a licensed producer that operated outside the law would face the consequences, just like any illegal dispensary owner. And he goes on to say that there shouldn't be two different standards, and that's completely right.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, that's why we continue our protests today.
Yeah.
It's a tiered playing field, and it needs to become level.
Yeah. It's not right. Not right. And talking about not right, our next story is most certainly not right as well.
Yeah, another data breach. This is happening way too often.
Yeah. Well, Natural Health Services, their patients were informed last week that there was a breach that occurred over a month's period from early December to early January, where somebody got into the information.
Yeah. So, they're saying your financial and your credit card and your social insurance numbers weren't affected and that wasn't collected. But nonetheless, your health information was collected. Statistics on your age, the region in which you live, all of these kinds of things. How much cannabis you ingest has been, taken.
Yep, healthcare numbers, contact information.
Yeah, this is a major breach. What are these? A lot of patients are still hesitant to this day about getting without the guidance of the healthcare system because of stuff like this.
Yeah, well, this time it's 34,000 patients that are affected, and I believe in the one that was done through Health Canada, that breach, I think it's somewhere around the same number as well. Yeah. So you're looking at like 70,000 people.
Yeah, 70,000 patients. Information is out there to who knows who. We don't know.
Yeah.
We will never know who got that information and what happened to it after that, now that it's no longer secure. Really big concerns for patients across the country, for sure. And this is why people don't want to register. And this points to another problem with these data breaches about buying in Ontario, purchasing cannabis from the OCS. The only way to do so is with a major credit card. You can't use a banking debit card. They don't take e-transfer. They don't do any of that kind of thing. It's got to be a registered credit card. So once again, what happens to your information?
Yeah, exactly. Nobody knows, and I know people who won't register there. I haven't even been to the OCS website yet, so I don't even know what it looks like.
I have. I explored it and everything else, and I checked it out. And there's no way in hell I would put down my credit card information on a government-owned website. It's not going to happen.
No. All right. Our next story. They're talking about the provinces. They're wanting some more cannabis. But Health Canada seems to think that there's not a cannabis shortage. What do you think?
Well, no cannabis shortage, according to Health Canada. Well, Health Canada, then how come so many stores are operating at lower operating hours? They're open 3 days a week instead of 6 or 7. They're operating half days on those days. Dozens have closed their doors altogether because they can't sustain operating costs such as rent and hydro without a product to sell. All these factors seem to go against their stand on that, and I think they need to reevaluate it. We've talked about this in the past. Of course, there's a shortage. Now, how do we alleviate that shortage? Well,
Yeah.
there's lots of ways.
There's lots of ways. There's ways. They can do it. Yeah, a spokesman for Manitoba says that breaking the black market is a key aspect of legalization. He says that you have to have a legal supply to do that, and if you do not have a legal supply, people will go to the previous channels that they were using. Exactly.
That's right. That's right. People aren't willing to wait 3 to 7 business days to receive their cannabis in the mail. They aren't willing to travel 11 hours to the nearest store that is a brick and mortar store, which is the journey if you live in Thunder Bay, to the nearest outlet, which will be in Sudbury, which isn't even open yet.
Well, we'll get into that one later.
So, yeah, we'll get into that later. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that we're looking at here. They're not going to do it.
No.
So they, of course, will continue to use their regular outlet that they've used forever.
Yeah, John Arthbot, CEO of Delta 9 Cannabis, he agrees that there's not enough cannabis to go around, and that he says we're in a short supply, a supply shortage environment right now. What we foresee for the future is that supply shortages last for the next 1 to 2 years. He says it takes time to ramp up the production because of money, so on and so forth. But I don't know. Obviously, store owners don't have any cannabis. But what exactly does the government say, Kim?
Well, the government says, of course, there's no cannabis shortage. There's a lot of pot in the country, they say. There's no problem with cannabis in the country right now. There's ample amounts. The problem is the way they're counting it. We've discussed this in the past on past shows. I mean, you can do, if we equate this to, say, alcohol, okay, if you make all of the high quality alcohol in the world disappear and all that's left is alcohol, you can then say, yes, there's lots of alcohol left in the country, but there's nothing anybody wants to drink.
That's right, exactly.
Right? So that's the problem here. That's what we're dealing with. There's lots of low-grade stuff that nobody is buying. That's sitting on the shelf collecting dust. Anything anybody wants isn't available.
Yeah. Health Canada says that total inventories of cannabis far exceed reported sales. And they go on to say that the overall level of supply continues to grow month over month as license holders expand the productivity of already approved production spaces. Well, here we are in Ontario, we don't even have, very many stores. Other provinces are holding off. There's nothing there. Or not enough anyways, obviously.
Yeah, no, not nearly enough. I mean, there's a small handful that opened on time today. You can count them on one hand, how many opened up today. And that's to supply the largest province in this country, and we are last on the sheet here. Last.
Yeah, apparently Health Canada is opposed to relaxing its licensing rules to get more growers in the system. It says the federal licensed facilities have the capacity to produce over 800,000 kilograms of cannabis per year, which they say is close to the amount of cannabis consumed in Canada by Canadians.
Yeah, I mean, there's your numbers right there. It's insane the way that this is unrolling in Canada, in Ontario. We had such high hopes in this province. We thought we've got the best sort of regulations and rollout that was sort of on paper. But the way it rolled out is not at all what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. And we'll get into more of that as we go along through the show, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And when there's a shortage, when there's a shortage of cannabis, there's also a shortage of cannabis oil as well.
Yes, that's right. Patients are feeling the crunch here. Producers don't want to turn their cannabis plants into oil because there's so many other avenues that they could go with it. When you don't have enough to go around, you have to start making the choices. What am I going to do with this product? Do we sell it as bud? Do we sell it as oil? What are we doing? And once we roll edibles out, that problem's going to compound.
Oh, it will be for sure. And like I said, it's already happening with the oil. People are looking for the CBD oil. They're hearing all this stuff, all this good things about it. And the example here that they've given here in the CBC report is a lady who waited in line in Nova Scotia when they first opened up, and she went in there to get some, and there was none in stock.
Already gone. If they had it at all at opening, they had a limited quantity, and she missed out. She couldn't get it. So people are waiting in lineups for these products, and when they get there, they find out they're not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Health Canada says there's no shortage.
No shortage, no. And they're surprised by the demand. I think the only people who should be really surprised are maybe the people that weren't involved in the community before all this going, because they didn't realize how big it was.
You know, we've been trying to tell them from the onset, you do not understand. Everybody, almost everybody, the majority of the population on this planet consumes cannabis in one form or another. They just do it quietly. You make it legal, they don't feel the need to stay quiet anymore.
Yeah, and the producers don't have any time frame whatsoever when stuff will be available.
That's right. There is no time frame, and largely that's because of Health Canada and dragging their feet and the very, oh my God, enormously long process that they have to go through for expansion, for opening in the start with new facilities, all of this. The red tape is astronomical, and it's just taking way too long. This is a plant. So even once you get your authorization, you got 6-8 months before you're doing a harvest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this isn't like where you can just go turn on a tap, get some water, and throw some chemicals in it, and you got a product. No, this takes time to grow.
I mean, we're looking at years.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's been the prediction. I've heard up as far as 5 years, because, like as you mentioned, once everything else comes on board, the edibles, all that stuff.
Yep. It's going to be a bigger crunch after that.
That's right. That's right. And our next story, sort of discusses some of that. And this is our last story before we go on break, too.
Alrighty. Yeah, we're going to talk more about, in depth about the impact on CBD oils.
No, we've already covered that. We're moving on.
We're doing a small batch now. My bad. I'm one behind. I clicked over in the wrong direction. See, this is what happens when you're live. I mean, people are talking about, how can we alleviate this problem that we talked about in the last two stories with with not having enough availability. And hey, there's growers across the country, right?
That's right, yeah. Well, small batch bud growers hope to eke out a share of cannabis market, according to this report here. And they have an example of one fella who has a Christmas tree farm as well as lavender. It's 5 acres, so it's not very big, compared to some of the places. And he wants to turn that into a cannabis grow location.
Yeah, Rob Wilson planned to spend his golden years, apparently, on this 5-acre farm. And, now he's looking at cannabis. It's something that we're hearing a lot of from different microcultivators of other foliage.
That's right. As they say, micro growers, they're going to have more of a niche product, probably want more money for it and stuff like that. Mr. Wilson there, he says he's invested about $500,000 to get going. And his next step is to, apply with Health Canada. But according to this report, Health Canada has received 83 applications to become microgrowers. How many people do you think have been approved?
Yeah, well, hold on to your hat there. One out of 83 have been approved since this process began.
One grower.
Again,
that's really upping the production, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
availability.
Here's an avenue that everybody is screaming for, where we could add, niche products, different things like, organic, small batch is appealing to consumers. It's like the high-end rye that you go and spend, $130 for a bottle of this stuff in the liquor store. This is what will help the cannabis market in Canada, and there's a great opportunity here. But Health Canada, where are you?
Yeah. Well, they compare it as you go in, you can buy a Bud Light, or you can go to a microbrew. They're comparing the difference of your beers, and there is a big difference.
And there's a big difference there. People want small batch. That's what they want. They want small batch. But there's also an opportunity to add the niche products in there into the general flow to pad the OCS and all of the provincial retail outlets that are looking for more products. So, I mean, twofold this could come out. Craft breweries in Canada are exploding. People love them. The same could happen for cannabis, and it should be rolled out all on the same platform. I don't know why our government is so slow with this, and they want to pick and choose what elements they want to roll out and do this in a process over years. When you look south of the border at different states in the U.S., they're doing it right. They're getting all of this stuff, they're putting it in one plan and rolling it out all at once.
Yeah, they're not doing the separation of the plant from the edibles. Everything's coming out at the same time. Now, some of them aren't getting it done, super quickly. It might take a year, like it did here in Canada initially.
But they're looking at all aspects instead of just this. And then, later on, we're going to look at this. And then later on, we're going to look at this. It makes for a mishmash of laws that wind up just horrific for everybody.
Yes, it does. Exactly. All right, Kim, let's hopefully they get moving on the ball, get some more people approved so they can get more of this craft cannabis out to the people.
Yes, absolutely.
One isn't going to do it. So
no, one isn't going to do it. 1 out of 83. And I'm actually surprised the number of 83. I thought it would be higher than that.
Yeah, I thought it would have been higher than 83 as well. But the one, just one approval. Like
One. Come on, Health Canada. Let's go.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, Kim, well, it's medication time.
Sounds good to me.
All right. This week, we're going to hear a global news report on how to make safe edibles. Can you imagine that? We never even thought about seeing something like that on the news.
On the news.
Yeah. Okay, then Kim and I will be right back after you hear a bit of a gorilla singing about a baggie. You're listening to Reefer Reporters. We are live here at 420radio.ca.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
Infused brownies with canna butter. Your butter, your coconut oil, whatever you're infusing, whatever sort of fat, throw it into the crock pot, let it melt, then add your decarbed cannabis. To decarb this, I've ground it up lightly. You don't want to kill it, you don't want to pulverize it. Just lightly grind your cannabis. This is 3.5 grams. And I put it in the oven on 240 for 1 hour. This is what it looks like when it comes out of the crock pot. Now that is the infused butter. So this comes off. That's my butter, the infused. This is what I cook with, and you can put it on bread, like bread and butter, whatever. This is the actual psychoactive THC infused butter. Okay, so I'm just gonna preheat the oven, if I can find there we go, to 350. So while I'm mixing the ingredients, the oven's preheating. A lot of edibles that you make with cannabis get really dry. So you need the extra oil, coconut oil or butter, spray everything. If you're making edibles, brownies, cookies, whatever you're making, make sure that everything's sprayed. So I'm gonna mix my dry. And now this is my brown sugar, and I have one solid, it's a packed cup of brown sugar into the bowl. And my flour, it's 3/4 of a cup of flour, 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. My brownies will work out to be 10 to 12 milligrams each, and anything under 10 milligrams is considered a microdose. I'm going to add my pinch of salt to this. 2 tablespoons of cocoa. When you're cooking with cannabis, there is often that weedy taste, so the vanilla helps break that down a bit, and it's not as noticeable. And I'm adding 3 eggs, 3 large. Woo! This is my half a cup of infused canna butter. I'm just gonna give this a quick microwave because it should be melted to blend in. Oh, it's perfect. So this is a half a cup of infused canna butter. You can use a mini ice cream scoop or a melon baller. Spoon works just fine. This is going to make 2 dozen brownies. It's $3.50 for 15 minutes. So I'm gonna let these cool for 12 to 15 minutes because they still they rise, they still are baking. So I want them to settle and to cool down before we transfer them to the plate. And I add a little bit of icing sugar. And like I said earlier, the icing sugar and the vanilla is sort of to offset if there is any weedy taste to them.
Catch Cannabis and Coffee to Marijuana live every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern, 10 Mountain Time, only here at 420radio.ca.
Catch the Pace Radio Show with Al Graham, along with one of his rotating joint hosts, Julie Chiarello, Mary Jane Baker, or myself, Kim Cooper, when one of us and our guests go live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. here on 420radio.ca.
Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of Ganja, the island of Jamaica, when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here at 420radio.ca. But you can listen in to midnight every weekend as he spins your favorite reggae tunes, including the classics from Butterfly's Passion Bed and Breakfast, high above Discovery Bay. DJ Passion makes you feel like you're on the island, and he gets your dance floor hopping. But it's the thing he loves to do. Whether you've been to Jamaica or not, DJ Passion makes you feel like you're on the island. Head to the land of sun and fun and Ganja Weekly when you tune in Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to Reggae Saturday with DJ Passion, only here at 420radio.ca. Catch the wild, crazy, and the serious Friday nights at 7 p.m. on the 420 Radio Show, only here at 420radio.ca.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, not for long. The future is coming on. Hey, laughing. I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, not for long. My future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on.
Okay, we're back and we are live again. We got some medication into us. We got another joint rolled. We got Dad ready for the next break. What do you think, Kim? Should we get right back at it?
Ready to get right back at it, all medicated and geared up and ready to go to talk about something that's never happened before on national TV.
National TV?
Yeah.
Oh.
Cannabis stores that are opened, but they talked about honeypot had a clip on I think it was CTV.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. The Ontario cannabis stores opened today. Yeah. But how many of them actually opened? What do you think?
10 stores total out of the 25 were given the green light to open operations on their doors opening day.
Yeah, just 10. We got 10 stores here, maybe 10. As long as they all open, as long as they all had a supply to do so.
Yeah.
Let's see. So they had 3 stores authorized to open in Ottawa, 2 in Kingston, one in Toronto, Brampton, Burlington, London, and St. Catharines. So a city of 3 million people has got one store.
One store for 3 million people.
And
yeah.
And according to this article here in CTV, that one store in Ontario had 40 people lined up outside of it.
Yeah, 40 people lined up waiting for its doors to open Monday morning. Unbelievable.
Wouldn't you think we had more than 40 people in front of us, the only store in Toronto?
Yeah, 40 people. 3 million people. We're talking about 3 million people have access to this one store. 40 people lined up. How many people do you see lined up for the opening of a Walmart? How many people do you see lined up for the opening or the release of the latest iPod?
That's right. You have much more than 40. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. Now, there's probably some people lined up out front to be part of the nostalgia of, the first legal stores in Ontario. It's sort of, it's not exciting. It's all anticlimactic because, cannabis has been legal for 6 months. Other people have been going out and buying it. It's just, Ontario's the last store in the whole country to get, or last province in the whole country to get a store.
Yeah, I would think that more than likely, probably about half or more of the people in that lineup just wanted to be part of history.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's the mindset. I'm being part of history. If I get my picture in the paper, I'm going to go down with my name in the paper in history as one of the first people to walk through the doors of the brick and mortar stores in Ontario, and that's great. I get that. I get that being your reason for wanting to be there, but only 40 people wanted to do that.
The Honeypot store, they were asked by the reporters whether they are worried about running out of supply in the coming days. He says it's hard to say. The owner, he doesn't know.
He's not even committing because he doesn't know.
He's not even committing.
That's right. He doesn't know. He sees the writing on the wall. He knows what's happening in other provinces. Since Ontario was so late to roll out, and these are the first stores opening, we really don't know if we're going to meet the same supply crunches that other provinces are currently meeting. But there's no reason to think that we wouldn't, considering those supply crunches are nationwide.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's countrywide. So, in Burlington, the store that opened there, 24 people were waiting for its doors to open. One of them was a medical cannabis user. His name was Art. He's 67 years old. He said that the prices are too high. The government's not going to have any chance of dealing with the black market if they don't lower the costs, he says.
Absolutely. Another gentleman, Gord Nichols, who arrived at the store at 5:30 a.m., said he lined up because he wanted to be part of history. Exactly what I was talking about before. And I bet you a lot of people's mindsets, that's exactly where they were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They just want to be part of the whole thing that's going on. And the other 15 stores that didn't open today, they would be losing $12,500 as a fine.
And that's problematic because how many of them weren't open because the government didn't give them the authorization to open?
Yeah,
there wasn't enough time.
Well, apparently there's something built into there to allow them to adjust that date some. If it turns out that the problem is their fault and not the store's fault, then they will probably grant some time. But it'd be interesting to see what happens. If it's in the coming days, if we're hearing about places that did receive their fine. And if they don't open by the end of April, $50,000 line of credit is gone.
Yeah. They had to put that up at the very onset as soon as they were accepted for their bid as one of the store owners. So $50,000 line of credit was submitted to the government. These fines ensue outside of that $50,000 line of credit, which is held for the final fine. at the end of April. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this rolls out, which leads us to the next story about how it's rolling out in Northern Ontario. I mean, Northern Ontario, we're half the province up here, and we got 2 stores for all of it.
2? Come on, how many you want?
2 stores for the entire vast region of Northern Ontario. You drive from one end of Ontario to the other. At the regular speed limit, it takes you over 12 hours to get from one end to the other.
That's just in Northern Ontario.
Just Northern Ontario. From North Bay to up to past Thunder Bay. It's a 12-hour drive. So, yeah. It's huge. It's huge. We got 2 stores. Both
and neither one of them
city.
Open?
Neither one of them opened. And they're both in the same city. They're both in Sudbury. So, yeah, neither one of them opened. They are saying it's problems with licensing.
Yeah, it says here, if applicants have not been issued a ROL or RSA, it is not because of the delays in processing the applications. It is due to the diligence required in assessing the eligibility of applicants, partners, interested parties, and stores. And they've got a dedicated teams working closely with each applicant, is what they're saying here, according to the AGCO.
Yeah, he says they'll only license operators and authorized stores once they are satisfied that all the legal and regulatory requirements have been met. So this process is still ongoing for the Northern Ontario shops that were set to open, and they haven't received their final approval yet.
Yeah, well, they hope they open up their store. High Life does April the 5th.
April, my birthday.
Oh, is it? Well, happy birthday.
It's my birthday, April the 5th. So, yeah, that'll be a nice birthday present for me to go down in history as the day the first Northern Ontario store opened up. It was on my birthday as well, so that'll be kind of nice. But, yeah, I mean...
Well, you guys way up there. You can drive down to Toronto. It's only 8 hours one way.
Yeah, 8 hours one way to Toronto. For me, even Sudbury is a 3.5-hour drive.
Oh wow! Oh, yeah, it's just around the corner, eh?
Yeah. I'm in Kirkland Lake, just outside the Temiskaming region, and it's a 3-hour drive for us from here to Sudbury from northeastern Ontario.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that this is the only store.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you don't have any stores yet. You may have one in a week, maybe.
Maybe later.
Well, yeah. We just want to touch on briefly something that was sent to us just as we were about to go live, and this was a bit of a video. Kim, you got to watch it. I didn't, but it appears, according to Global News, is that Doug Ford, the premier here in Ontario, is calling on communities to shut down illegal cannabis stores.
Yeah, the video clip is brought to us from Global News. I'm not sure exactly where he's speaking from, but he is speaking somewhere. It looks like a garage of some sort. And he's saying that the illegal dispensaries in Ontario frustrate him, and that he's sick and tired of them popping up like mushrooms all over the place, and nobody is doing anything about it. From what my memory recalls, that's the quote that I can recall him saying in this video clip. I was floored watching this.
Yeah. We mean nothing's being done to it. There's people who are being arrested almost daily because of raids.
Is this premier that out of touch with anymore? These quotes would have held true maybe a year ago, but in today's cannabis community, absolutely not. They're being raided everywhere.
That's right. Exactly. And those people who are getting arrested, they might be interested in this next story, which happens to be to do with the pardon truck.
Yeah, I love this. The pardon truck is traveling through Ontario. We did a story on this a while ago when it left BC, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So
we did, and now it's in Edmonton now.
It's in Edmonton. Yeah, it's on its way to Ontario, and it's in Edmonton now. It's going around talking to people about, instead of routine repeal, they want to repeal the law rather than allowing for pardons.
Pardons. They're trying to get it so that our records or people's records are expunged.
Yeah.
So, because a pardon will only sort of cover it up, whereas expunging will remove it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, once you're pardoned, it's still on your record. I mean, it still can be dug up, and it can still cause you a lot of problems.
Yeah. So they're traveling across the country, letting people know that this is the differences, and these are things that. Is something the government should be looking at, which goes back to what you mentioned earlier about down in the U.S., where some of the states are rolling out with the edibles and the cannabis at the same time. But they've also, some of them are including expunging minor criminal records for cannabis.
That's right.
Which we're seen to be getting this dangled in front of us like a carrot.
That's right. And it goes back to that again. The way we're doing this in this country, one piece at a time, it's almost like we're trying to build some sort of a puzzle here instead of laying out a proper picture of a future format. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this truck, just so you know, it looks like a big food truck, doesn't it, eh?
Yeah, it's very cool looking CBC News article, and it does. It looks like a food truck. It's got the awning that opens up, and then a staircase drops down so you can actually enter inside and have a seat and talk to the people that are running it. David Durante is an experimental event manager with Doja, and he said during his time working on the campaign, he's already met people who have been personally affected by minor cannabis convictions. So obviously they're making good strides, he said, the federal government, and we're definitely aligned with what they're trying to do. But we want to push it one step further.
That's right. He goes on to say that even with the pardon, people face tons of hardships while applying for a job or volunteering. He goes on to say that it can be embarrassing to tell family and friends that you have this on the record, so we're really trying to help those people move forward with their life and get behind them. Because really, why should we be punishing people for something that's no longer against the law?
Absolutely. Expungement is the way to go. Handing out pardons one at a time, it's not effective. It doesn't meet the end goal in mind for it. And it's not cost effective either. Expungement is absolutely the way to go across the board. And then, everybody gets the benefit that is intended by this action.
And while they're going across the country, they're collecting signatures for a petition that they're going to submit to the government. Next week, they're in Edmonton, and they're supposed to be in Ontario by 4/20.
Yeah, April the 20th, they'll be arriving in Toronto. I wonder where they'll be in Toronto. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yes, exactly. And we hear more on the 420 rally where it's going to be located. We'll let everybody know, too, because I still haven't confirmed anything yet on that.
Yeah, I've seen posts saying, it's being moved to Woodbine.
Is it going to Woodbine?
Yeah, I've seen a post on their 420 event page that says that they are now going to be at Woodbine.
There you go. Good stuff.
I think it's, just on a side note, my personal opinion on this, better idea all the way around. They were offered Woodbine Park. They could put up a stage. They're allowing vendors. They're going to be left alone and allowed to proceed with the event unbothered. So, take it. I mean, if you're going to be keeping it at Nathan Phillips Square, no vendors, no stage, no speakers.
No, nothing. Other than the old fashioned rallies that we used to do down at Niagara Falls. Just somebody yelling at the top of their lungs and hoping that somebody can hear them.
That's right. I mean, if your city is offering you a space that you can do this unencumbered, you got to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's see. This next story, Kim.
Yeah. Next story. Addictions experts sound alarm on common claims about cannabis use. I actually pulled this one up because I found it on the Timmins Health Unit site, which was interesting to me.
Yeah, yeah. And this is an updated version of what used to be there?
Yeah, this is an updated version of what used to be there. Timmins Health Unit has been sounding the alarm about cannabis use and posting a lot of stuff that was based on old-time thinking and propaganda, non-factual information. I had hoped that our strides in Timmins and the strides of Canada's evolution towards legal cannabis would change their attitudes. And it seems it's working a little bit. I'm a little bit encouraged by this article. I really kind of like a lot of points that it makes, but there's a couple not so much at the same time.
Yeah, I see here. Well,
pick it apart.
They've changed some of the data. It's changed from saying that cannabis leads to drug use, but now they're saying that it doesn't cause other drug use. So they've rephrased it some.
That's right. They've rephrased it, and they've opened that line. Cannabis is a gateway drug, quote unquote. And they opened the statement with, "That's a myth that persists." That cannabis is a gateway drug. And they go on to explain why it's a myth. So they're letting you know that cannabis is not a gateway drug if you read the article. So the way they've set it up, if you read just the highlighted stuff, you're going to think it's a terrible article and cannabis is horrible. But if you go on to read the factual information contained within, it sheds light that it's not that way.
Yeah, there's they mention here that there's a 10% addiction rate is what they found with people who use cannabis. But they say also, relatively speaking, cannabis is one of the least addictive drugs we see.
That's right. That's right. And I was glad to see that. The one thing that the story is lacking is highlighting the fact that every person has an endocannabinoid system. And sometimes when you, well, not sometimes, but always when you build your endocannabinoid system by use of cannabis, you're adding cannabinoids to that system. If you suddenly stop doing that, you will feel effects of that, just as you will feel effects of lack of vitamin C, lack of sunshine, and lack of anything that your body is running on. So I really wish they would have highlighted that a little bit more, because that can be sometimes confused with withdrawal symptoms.
I see here they talk about they mention the danger of addiction, but cannabis may also pose other health risks, which include car accidents.
I don't think that's a health risk. It's lack of judgment causes car accidents. If you're ingesting anything that has given you an altered state or sense of impairment, then you shouldn't be operating any motorized vehicle, and that's common sense. Cannabis would not be the cause. I think the person behind the wheel would be the cause.
Yeah, they also say here that they believe that prohibition was a harmful approach to the issue of cannabis use, which is good to see.
Which is great to see. I'm really encouraged by what I'm reading in this article overall, and I'm really, really encouraged that it was put out by the Timmins Health Unit.
Yeah. I see. You mean, yeah, there's some surprises in there.
Yeah. Changing attitudes, slowly but surely they're changing.
That's right, slowly. All right, Kim, one more story. This is our last story before we go to break.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the indigenous movement in the cannabis industry, and the WLIB is opening the Indigenous Bloom in Lake City's First Nations first operational cannabis dispensary out there.
That's right. You're going to be able to get recreational as well as medical items. They said that this for almost a 6 months wait to William Lake Indian Band. That's what those initials stand for.
Yeah.
They finally opened up their store. March the 23rd.
Yeah.
It's been a week.
Yeah. Expo would open for a week. Dozens of people went out to browse the store's wares and show their support. And some enjoyed some bannock on the night, on the sunny day that was provided by the band leaders. It was a great day for the opening up there, and everybody's fully supportive of the Indigenous movement.
Yeah, well, the chief up there, Willie Sellers, he was excited about the official opening of the store, and he says it's going to blaze a trail for both Indigenous enterprise and diversifying the economy, which is
For sure. Indigenous Bloom currently employs 11 full-time staff members, and they hope to grow in the future. This is giving people jobs, and it's going to lead to shoot-off employment and industry within the region. People that come there will need jobs, and then that place needs supplies, and other shops wind up opening up. So you see runoff companies happen when this takes place.
That's right. It's great to see that they've been able to open and help the community become stronger. Like you say, they're employing people.
Yep. They're going to be only to grow in the future. So good luck to Indigenous Bloom, and my best to y'all. Great luck.
Yes,
great
exactly.
Stuff going on in Williams Lake.
Yes, there is. It's great. It's great to see. I don't know. Maybe is Williams Lake closer to you?
No, I think that's Alberta.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even know where it is. I'm looking for it on here. I couldn't see it.
Alberta or Saskatchewan?
I'm rolling through. Yeah, it doesn't say. I don't see a province listed.
I think it's Alberta, possibly Saskatchewan. So all our listeners out there, if you know, call us or send us a message. Let us know.
It's out west. Someplace.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's go for break. What do you think?
All right. Sounds good. Maybe then I'll remember where it is.
That's right. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll hunt it up during the break time. All right. Okay. So since it's medication time again, it means we're going to hear another news story. This time we're going to hear a news clip from somewhere called VOA, and it's going to be a clip on bongs and bingo. And then Kim and I will be right back after the break, and after you hear the results of that bingo trip by a man called Mr. John Prime. You're listening to the Reefer Reporters. We are live here, 420radio.ca.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
I'm trying to get on this lifestyle radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
A group of senior citizens from Laguna Woods Village, an upscale retirement community in Southern California, make a monthly bus trip to a cannabis dispensary in Santa Ana, where they enjoy lunch, play bingo, and get a supply of marijuana.
I like to run around, and started having issues with my knees, and somebody suggested, well, why don't you try smoking pot? It will help with your joint issues.
People ages 65 and older are the fastest growing group interested in using marijuana. Some of them smoked pot in their youth.
I used to do it when I was like 18, 19, 20, and had a baby, got married, and stopped doing it. I missed it at times, but after a while you just kind of grow out of it, and then you kind of get to a certain age and you're relaxed, and you have and everybody up was doing it again.
The Bud and Bloom Cannabis Dispensary in Santa Ana provides free bus service for the seniors, as well as instruction on safe use of the weed.
We have to be very cognizant of the fact that it can interact with certain other medications. And so if an elderly person or really anybody is on multiple pharmaceuticals, blood thinners, seizure medications, and the list goes on, they really should have a physician looking at potential drug interactions so that person does not end up in an emergency room with an issue.
Experts say more research is needed on marijuana in general, but most agree that appropriate use can alleviate some of the problems associated with old age, such as sleeplessness, tension, arthritis, back pain, stiff muscles, and moodiness. With marijuana entering mainstream America, there is a growing industry of cannabis-linked products, such as pipes, ashtrays, vaping pens, cannabis oil, candy, and others.
It just shows that weed has permeated the full spectrum of society. You know, like in 3 years, it's gone from, I mean, you know, even 2 years ago, you'd go to dispensaries here in California, and you'd feel like you were visiting a parole officer.
Marijuana is still banned by federal law, but California and about 10 other U.S. states have legalized the drug for recreational as well as medicinal use. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Wednesday is an action-packed day here at 420radio.ca. At noon Eastern, we get things started with cannabis and coffee with to marijuana. Then at 3 p.m., the doctor is in. We can catch the Higher Estate with Dr. Ira Price. Finish up the evening at 8 p.m. with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with myself, Al Graham, and my rotating joint hosts. So don't forget to tune in on Wednesdays, when we can catch these live shows and their guests only here at 420radio.ca. Listen to the 420 Radio Show every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here at 420radio.ca. Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of guns at the island of Jamaica when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here at 420radio.ca.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
Not too perfect, we want to sound like a regular crowd. I have the key to escape reality, and you may see. Well done. Send them again. Hot dog burn.
Hey, we're back from another medication break, and we are the Reefer Reporters, and we are live here at 420radio.ca. Well, Kim, we got a few more stories to cover. What do you think?
Yes, we do, and I'm out of breath from running.
Just for our listeners to know, the previous story before the break, Kim looked it up. Williams Lake is in British Columbia, right?
That's right, BC. Williams Lake, BC. I knew it was out west.
So we're going from one native story to another one.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the native tribes and communities down south of the border. Now, with the evolution of cannabis laws that's taking place in California, native tribes want on there as well.
That's right. They can now allow cannabis sales, and cannabis businesses on tribal land can engage in commerce with business on other tribal land as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Intertribal business is allowed. You're allowed to transport from one tribe to another and that kind of thing. So, I mean, they're even one step further than we are fighting for in here in Ontario.
Yeah, it's good to see that their government is allowing it, whereas, here it's still, the federally they gave it to the provincial land, and the provinces,
Puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
Puzzle pieces, and you have to try and navigate them all and put them all together so that they fit. It's just an erratic system, the way that we're doing it here in Canada. Again, it kind of goes to what I talked about earlier. The way they're rolling stuff out in the States, they're looking at it from a sensible point of view. They're saying, okay, here's what's going on everywhere else. Here's what we need here, and here's what we've seen the issues. So let's just get it all together, all on one piece of paper.
Yeah, it says here that if tribes decide to get into the cannabis market, a small but vibrant industry could be created in California, one that avoids the heavy hand of the state regulatory framework. They say that in this way, a new kind of market could be created, one that shows that cannabis is not something that needs to be restricted, but instead an amazing economic opportunity that needs to be unleashed.
That's it. And that is it in a nutshell. Everybody can prosper on this, including the consumers, by having choice, by having a regulated market with safe product, by having, low prices and affordable products that consumers are going to gravitate towards. And if everybody's on an equal playing field for this, and everybody's involved, everybody walks away happy.
That's right, exactly. And there's this one line here where it says that the most likely scenario is that the tribes will work with state lawmakers to come up with some sort of compromise. And that's what I'm sort of seeing maybe here in our province, here in Ontario as well. Yeah. Because of the dispensaries, there are so many on the reserves. They are doing their own regulations, coming up with their own controls and all that, which is very similar to what's going on here in California.
Yeah, that's right. I think a lot of these tribes all over North America are looking at what's going on in Ontario. Ontario really, the Native community in Ontario has sort of paved the path for this. They established a framework, and it's working. And because it's working, everybody now is looking, saying, hey, how'd you do that?
Yeah, and I think Obama at one time, he said something about the natives had some rights to it as well.
Absolutely, inherent right, and that can't be disputed. So there's really nothing that the governments federally or provincially can do about it. So they might as well embrace it and get used to it.
Yeah, work together, folks. Work together.
That's it.
All right, talking about work. Our next story, it's a follow-up, I think, to one we had covered last week when the DEA was out looking for people to incinerate some cannabis. And what happened?
Well, I hope, I guess we're partly responsible. We led the call to charge onto the DEA, who sent out a message saying they were looking for somebody to burn some cannabis. Well, apparently, they've had tremendous response to this shout out, and they've now asked people to stop calling them.
Stop calling. They said that they were originally looking for a company, like a big company that has incinerators and all that. But just regular everyday people were calling them and saying, hey, I can help you out there. And I know on my Facebook thread, there was people that were offering to go down and burn one joint at a time.
Yeah, there was plenty of offers on my social media posts on various fronts with people saying that they could gladly help out the DEA. And apparently those thoughts have not been limited to social media. The DEA's phones have been blowing up with regular people saying, hey, bud, I'm here for you.
That's right. The contract opening calls for vendors to aid in the incineration of evidence, including thousands of pounds of cannabis. The vendor must have an incinerator with capability of destroying cannabis to a point where there is no detectable levels as measured by standard methods of byproduct by the destruction process. I don't know, Kim. I think if they measured the ash from a joint, you think they'd find any in it?
I'm pretty sure it would meet their standard measures by doing it that way, Al. I think it's pretty safe. It's been burned to a crisp and nothing left but ash. So, I mean, if that's the only criteria, then I'm sorry, DEA, I beg to differ. All of the people that have submitted their applications so far by phone have lived up to those standards.
The report says it's a task that many people feel they can perform, but the Houston division wants everyone to know that your personal experience incinerating weed doesn't necessarily mean you qualify for that position.
Red tape and technicalities. Come on, let's just get the job done.
They do appreciate the offer of help, though, okay?
Well, I'm glad they're appreciative of all the offers, and I think it's hilarious. And it just goes to show, if nothing else, the cannabis community definitely has a great sense of humor.
That's right. That's right. You can't call us lazy. They keep calling us lazy. Look at all the people offering to work there.
Oh, that's hysterical. That brought tears to my eyes. Oh, that's hysterical. Oh, goodness. The good old DPA. Going on to our next one.
Yes.
We're going to talk a little bit about a TV icon that are known to many of the older generations in the cannabis community, for sure.
Yeah, as we discussed the story earlier before we went live, and you had mentioned to me about when people see somebody that they would see almost daily just look that delivers the news to them, they start to trust that person, they believe in that person, and that's basically what is happening here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about TV icon, news icon, Tom Brokaw. He was a straight-laced newscaster for half a century on the airwaves that many people watched on NBC. He's 79 years old and the anchor of the news for a couple of decades. So, as you said, Al, people trust that face after all of that time of that one person bringing them the daily news. Well, he was recently diagnosed with cancer, and he's decided to publicly announce that he's opted to use cannabis as part of his therapy.
Yeah, he was diagnosed with where did it go? Multiple myeloma.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has something to do with his bones. Yeah. Cancer cells to cluster in bone marrow.
Yeah. So, it's another cancer that we don't hear too often of, but it is a cancer. It's affecting his bones. He was diagnosed at the Mayo Clinic, and he's decided to opt in to use cannabinoid therapy.
Yeah, that's right. He's had some treatments, chemotherapy, spinal operation. Got the cancer under control, but left him with lasting pain in his bones.
Yeah. So he's using cannabis to control the pain and the symptoms left over from his pharmaceutical and medical treatments that he received to get the cancer under control.
Yeah, he says that the relief will help him and to just maintain his quality of life. And this is something that we've said many times here when we're doing one-on-one conversations with people. Is there's no guarantee, but the quality of life can be so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. They take the harsh pharmaceuticals to control these pain, and they're in bed. You're bedridden for weeks and days on end. You don't have memory of what's going on. You don't have any stamina to do anything. Your quality of life goes out the window. With cannabis therapy, you can control the pain levels in the same levels without those side effects. You still have a way of life. You still have energy. You still get out of bed. You still do stuff.
That's right. He says the relief will help him, like I said, the quality of life. He's talking about traveling with his grandchildren and his own children. And he says that he's a very lucky guy. He says, we have a great life and I want to keep going on.
Yeah, so good for Tom Brokaw for coming out like that and making it public that cannabis is part of his life. And we're seeing this more and more trending towards the senior population and the aging population are gravitating towards cannabinoid therapy for sure.
Yeah, well, as our little news thing that went on there during the break, that was talking about that, the seniors.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the largest growing population that is embracing cannabis therapy.
That's right. Exactly. And in our next story, Kim, I find it very interesting because, we're hearing all this stuff about driving and that, we got to have detection before we can legalize cannabis. We got to know how when someone is impaired before we can legalize cannabis. But in Michigan, they seem to be looking at things a little bit different.
Hooray for Michigan. Somebody has got a brain and letting facts outweigh the propaganda and the hysteria over cannabis legalization. And that's what it comes down to. It's hysteria, because we've seen it play out here in Canada. All of the fears of the stats going up for impaired driving and how many people were going to be impaired on the roads by cannabis once it became legal just haven't come to be. So it is, in fact, hysteria. So it's good to see the southern states doing this kind of stuff. I mean,
Michigan's not south.
Our southern friends, our friends to the south in places like Michigan. I misspoke.
Yeah.
There.
That's right.
I mean, it's great to see them doing this kind of stuff at the onset, looking at the science, because I mean, we don't have a test that proves you're impaired by cannabis. It simply doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, what Michigan has decided, according to a new report, they say that Michigan should not set a legal driving limit for THC in the blood. That's right. Their governor, their former governor, Rick Snyder, an impaired driving safety commission, he set up. He says it made up of 6 panel members say that there should not be a legal limit for THC.
Yeah, he says there's no measurable blood level at which a driver is deemed to be, quote unquote, under the influence of marijuana.
A registered cannabis patient and 2 university professors.
Excellent. I mean, and I'm glad to see. I mean, we've had these commissions here too, but the problem is government doesn't listen to the results. So I'm glad to see that the government actually listened to these people.
Yeah. Now, according to the Commission's report, of the 33 states that have legalized recreational and medical cannabis, only 6 of them, only 6 out of the 33 have adapted impaired driving thresholds.
Yeah. Colorado, Montana, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Washington.
And, of course, our government was visiting Colorado and Washington when they were deciding what to do here, and they went with the 5 nanograms, the same as it's in Washington.
That's right, they did.
But yet,
well, they took 1 or 2 of the of all of the states, and I mean, there's only 6 that they could have taken. They could have taken any one of the other 28 states.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they went to those instead.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. All right, talking about legalization, in our last story here, we see we got someplace else that has legalized cannabis.
We're going to fly halfway across the country, and we're going to go to Guam. Lawmakers in Guam on Wednesday narrowly approved a bill legalizing recreational cannabis for adults over 21 there.
Yeah, senators in the Pacific U.S. territory backed the bill by a vote of 8-7, with both Democratic and Republican senators voting on each side, according to this report in the Pacific Daily News.
Yeah, now this has been in the works for about 5 years in Guam. 5 years ago, they approved the medical marijuana program down there, and home cultivation was legalized at that point. So now it's full on rec.
That's right. Users would be still prohibited from smoking in public, and the commercial sale of cannabis will not be allowed until the government decides on regulations.
Yeah, so they're still working out the bugs, but it's legal in Guam.
That's right. It's going to be, the government is required to put together a cannabis commission to outline the rules for use of production, sale, and taxation of it. And within a year, these regulations must go through the legislature and be signed into law by the governor. So they're over a year away here as well before
before it all
going
happens.
to brick and mortar store. But they voted on it, so now all that gets things rolling.
Yep, red tape that they've got to pass, running through all of their House bills and signing and stamping of the bills and all of that kind of stuff. And they'll work out the bugs, and then they'll be ready to roll. So another country down.
That's right. Yeah, that's a U.S. territory, actually.
U.S. territory. Yeah.
Another place.
Another one down.
Another one down. Exactly. Let's see. Anything else? That's our last report, Kim.
That was our last
report.
Yeah, that's it for this week on the Reefer Reporters. But man, there was so many to choose from. We could have went on for another hour as usual, but of course we can't. We don't have time for that. Brought you our top stories that we thought were important this week.
That's right. And just a reminder that all our stories, plus the stories we covered today, plus many more, are available at our Facebook page, the Reefer Reporters Facebook page. You can check us out there, and you can check out all the stories and read them in depth if you'd like. Yep. But other than that, that's our Reefer Report for April the 1st, 2019 from the Legacy420.com news desk. And in closing, we'd like to say thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed it, please share it with those you love and those you don't, including that grouchy neighbor you may have. Until next week, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
Bark at you later.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.